My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71 years old, and until the moment my phone rang in that doctor's waiting room, I thought I knew my own daughter. Mom, her voice was different, cold, distant. We're going to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye. Just like that. 45 years of raising her, sacrificing for her, loving her. Ended with a 30-second phone call. She discarded me like yesterday's garbage. But you want to know something? As I sat there on that uncomfortable plastic chair, surrounded by sick people, I didn't cry. For the first time in months, I didn't feel sadness. I felt a strange cold calm, because you see, my dear Angela had just made the biggest mistake of her life. There was something she didn't know, something her father, my Robert, had left for me. And what I found when I got home would change everything. Let me go back, just a little. My husband Robert passed away 6 months before that phone call. A heart attack right at the breakfast table. His last words to me were, "Good morning, my love." After he was gone, Angela became so present. She visited 3 times a week, helped with the funeral, came grocery shopping. She even insisted I see a doctor for a checkup. "You need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone, Mom," she'd say with this sweet smile. A smile I thought was love. Now I understand it was just convenience. She was setting the stage, the beach house. That was our sanctuary. Robert and I bought it with every penny we had when Angela was 15. Every summer, every Christmas, our family memories were built within those walls. And the car, that old Ford pickup truck, Robert cared for it like it was his child, washed it every Sunday. His scent was still on the seats. It was the last piece of him I had left, and she sold them both, just like that. But when she hung up on me, I didn't think about the house or the truck. I thought about an envelope. 3 days before he died, Robert had handed me a plain manila envelope. "Antonia," he said, his voice so serious, "put this in your dresser drawer. If something happens to me, open it after a while, but only when you feel ready." In the fog of my grief, I had forgotten it completely, but sitting in that doctor's office, it was all I could think about. The doctor examined me, said I was in perfect health for my age. I nodded, smiled, but my mind was a million miles away. I took the bus home. My car was gone, according to Angela, and I went straight to my bedroom. I opened that dresser drawer, and there it was, my name written on the front in Robert's neat handwriting. My hands shook as I picked it up. I could feel several documents inside. I sat on the edge of the bed Robert and I had shared for 45 years, took a deep breath, and I opened it. What I found inside took my breath away. Legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter. My eyes filled with tears just seeing his writing. "My dear Antonia," it began. "If you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worries." He wrote that over the years, he had invested all of our savings. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. I had to read that sentence 3 times. We owned their building. We also have shares in 3 companies that are worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You always were rich, but now you are on paper, too. I spread the documents out on the bed. Deeds to houses I'd never seen. A condo downtown. A motel on the coast. And yes, the deed to that 20-story apartment building. Robert, a bus driver for 40 years, had been a secret financial genius. He explained in the letter why he kept it a secret. "You know our daughter, Antonia. If she knew we had so much money, her attitude would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not what we have." The pain of that truth was a physical ache. He had been right, so terribly, terribly right. The next morning, Angela called again. Her voice was softer now, but I wasn't fooled. "Mom, how are you? I wanted to tell you we transferred the money from the house and the car. We deposited your share into your account." "My share?" "Yes, Mom. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? We need the rest for our investment in Europe. 30% of my own things. How generous, I said, my voice like ice. She told me they'd be gone for 6 months, and when they returned, they'd help me find a small apartment, something that fit my needs. I just said, "Okay, Angela, have a safe trip." And when she hung up, I did something I hadn't done since Robert died. I laughed. A real deep from the belly laugh. The situation was so absurd, it was comical. I knew what I had to do. I called Mr. Peterson, the lawyer who had handled Robert's will. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "I can have the sale of the beach house nullified immediately. It was fraudulent. We can also proceed with legal action against your daughter." "No," I told him, my voice firm. "No legal action. I want you to get my house back, quietly. And I need you to help me gain real control of all my properties, especially my daughter's building. And no one can know I am behind this." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Brooks, may I ask what your plan is?" My plan was simple. "I'm going to save my daughter, Mr. Peterson. But first, she has to learn what it truly means to have nothing." The following weeks were a strange performance. To the world, I was Antonia Brooks, the poor, abandoned widow. To myself, I was Antonia Brooks, silent millionaire, pulling the strings of my daughter's destiny. Mr. Peterson worked miracles. He got my beach house back. He started the process of transferring all the assets into my direct control. And then, Angela came back, alone. Aurora, my neighbor, came running over to tell me, "Antonia, she's back. She looks terrible. And Edward isn't with her." It turned out the business opportunity in Europe was a lie. Edward had massive debts, and he'd run off with another woman, leaving Angela to face the music. She showed up at my door that night, a broken woman. She'd lost weight. Her eyes were hollow. "Mom," she sobbed, "he left me. He took the money, and he left me. I have nothing." I took her in. I played my part perfectly, the compassionate mother, the vulnerable widow. I let her move back into her old childhood room, and I watched as she truly hit rock bottom. The banks were after her for Edward's debts. She couldn't get a decent job. Finally, she took a job cleaning offices at night. I'd watch her come home, exhausted, her spirit completely shattered. And she started to talk, not just about Edward, but about me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I treated you horribly. I was a terrible daughter." For the first time, it sounded real. It wasn't about her problems anymore. It was about what she had done to me. After a month of watching her struggle, of seeing her truly humbled, I knew it was time. I told her I had found a lawyer who might help her with the debts. We went to Mr. Peterson's office. Angela was nervous, wringing her hands. "I have to warn you," she told him. "I can't afford much." Mr. Peterson smiled and handed her a folder. "Miss Brooks, we've been investigating your case. You are not responsible for Edward's debts. We have evidence he forged your signature. You are free and clear." Angela stared at the documents, her face a mess of confusion and relief. I don't understand. Who paid for this? How is this possible?" Mr. Peterson looked at me. I took a deep breath. "Angela," I said, "there's something I need to tell you. Your father, he left us more than you ever knew." I handed her the second folder, the one with all the deeds, the bank statements, the proof of the fortune she had been so desperate to get a piece of. She read it in silence. I watched her face cycle through confusion, disbelief, dawning comprehension, and finally a look of pure, utter betrayal. She looked up at me, her eyes blazing. "You knew all this time, while I was cleaning offices, while I was crying myself to sleep. You knew you could fix everything with a single phone call?" "Yes." My voice was quiet but firm. It filled the room. I knew, and I could have fixed it. "But if I had, what would you have learned? That your mother will always clean up your messes?" You needed to understand the value of what you threw away, Angela. Not the money, not the houses. You needed to understand the value of family, of respect, of the unconditional love you treated so carelessly. The anger drained from her face, replaced by a profound, devastating shame. She looked down at the documents in her hands, the proof of a fortune she had tried to steal, and then back at me. The woman who had let her fall, only to be waiting at the bottom. "You're right," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I had to lose everything to realize what I had." That was the turning point. The lesson was learned. She didn't quit her cleaning job, not right away. She said she needed to finish what she'd started. She needed to remember. She went back to school, studied social work. We used Robert's money to start a foundation to help other women in situations like hers. The other night, we were sitting on the porch of our beach house, the one she sold, the one I got back, and she looked at me. "You know, Mom," she said, "Edward told me everything I wanted to hear. But you taught me everything I needed to know." Justice didn't come as revenge. It came as a transformation. And in the end, we both won. She got her soul back. And I got my daughter back, the real one. This time for good. My name is Eleanor. For 68 years, I believed my life was a simple story, a mother's story. But in my 69th year, my son and his wife taught me that some stories need a different ending. A sharper one. It began with a fall. A silly slip on a wet kitchen floor. The ambulance, the hospital, the doctor saying, "You really shouldn't be living alone, Eleanor." My son David and his wife Chloe were there. He held my hand, his face a perfect mask of concern. "Don't worry, Mom," he said, his voice so soft. "You'll come live with us. We'll take care of you." I should have seen it then, the cold calculation in Chloe's eyes. But I was dizzy with pain and gratitude. I believed him. I sold my little house, the one my Henry and I had shared for 40 years. I signed over the proceeds to them, a gesture of trust. "For the in-law suite," David said, "we'll build you a perfect little place of your own." The suite was never built. Instead, I was given the smallest bedroom at the back of their large, cold house. The room overlooked the concrete slab of the backyard, never the sun-drenched garden in the front. My furniture was sold. "It didn't fit the aesthetic, Eleanor," Chloe said, her smile like a shard of glass. My things were replaced with what they didn't want. A chipped nightstand, a thin rug, a small television that only got static. My role was quickly defined. I was the unpaid cook, the silent cleaner, the invisible babysitter for my 2 grandchildren, who were slowly taught to see me as a nuisance. "Don't bother Grandma, she's tired," Chloe would say, pulling them away from me. I was served leftovers after the family had eaten. My pension check was managed by David. "For your own good, Mom, so you don't get confused." The final humiliation came on a Tuesday. It was my birthday. I overheard Chloe talking to David in the kitchen. "She's just a burden, David, a drain on our resources. We need to think about a home. There's that place on the edge of town. It's affordable." And David, my own son, my little boy who I'd sung to sleep, simply sighed and said, "I know. It's for the best." Something broke in me that day. Not into pieces, but into something hard and sharp. I was not a burden. I was Eleanor Rossi, and it was time they remembered. The next day, while they were at work, I didn't clean. I didn't cook. I walked to the public library. I sat at a computer, my fingers trembling not with weakness, but with a long-forgotten purpose. I logged into an email account I hadn't used in a decade, and I wrote a single message. "Mr. Aldrich, this is Eleanor Rossi, Henry's wife. You once told me if I ever needed anything. I need something now." Samuel Aldrich wasn't just a friend. He was Henry's first business partner, the man my brilliant, quiet husband had started a tech company with in their garage 45 years ago. A company they sold for a sum that could make your head spin. Henry, ever the pragmatist, took his half and invested it, quietly. He never wanted the boys, David or his brother Michael, to be trust fund kids. "It would ruin them, Ellie," he'd say. "We'll leave it to them later when they've built their own character." He died before later came, and in my grief, I'd let the statements from a private wealth manager pile up in a locked safety deposit box, too painful to face. Until now. Samuel Aldrich called me himself within the hour. Eleanor, his voice was a warm rumble. Tell me everything, and I did. I told him about the back bedroom, the managed pension, the chipped nightstand, the nursing home. There was a long silence. Then, Henry would burn the world down for you, Eleanor. Consider me his proxy. What is your wish? My wish, Samuel, is not for money. It is for justice. And I have a plan. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. Samuel's firm, Apex Ventures, was a titan. And David? David was a middle manager at a sleek marketing firm that desperately wanted Apex as a client. The hook was set. Samuel's people reached out to David's CEO. They were interested, but they wanted to deal directly with David Rossi. My son was suddenly the most important man in his company. He came home bursting with pride. This is it, Chloe. The Apex account. This is our ticket to everything. Chloe started looking at brochures for tropical vacations. I just smiled and washed their dishes. Weeks of meetings followed. David was flying high. Then the final meeting was set. A dinner at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. David and Chloe bought new clothes. They practiced their pitches on each other. They didn't even notice I was in the room. The night of the dinner, I wished them good luck from my small chair in the corner. Chloe barely glanced at me. Don't wait up. I didn't. At the restaurant, under the soft glow of chandeliers, David and Chloe were led to a private room. Samuel Aldrich was there, elegant and imposing. He greeted them warmly. They talked business. David was brilliant, charming. Chloe was the perfect corporate wife. They were winning. Then, as dessert was served, Samuel leaned back. There is, however, one final condition for our partnership. Anything, David said, leaning forward eagerly. Samuel's gaze turned to ice. It concerns your mother, Eleanor Rossi. David's smile froze. My mother? We at Apex value family, Samuel said, his voice dropping to a dangerous purr. It has come to our attention that your treatment of her has been deplorable. You have taken her money, relegated her to a servant's role, and planned to discard her. A man who treats his own mother with such contempt is not a man we can trust with our millions. David went pale. Chloe's mouth fell open. But who? David stammered. The private door opened, and I walked in. I was wearing a dress I hadn't worn in years, a simple black sheath Henry always loved. My back was straight, my chin was high. I saw the shock on their faces, a physical blow. Hello, David. Chloe, I said, my voice calm. I believe you know my business associate, Mr. Aldrich. The silence was absolute. You could hear the champagne bubbles bursting in their flutes. Mom? David whispered, his world collapsing. Eleanor is the silent majority partner in my firm, David, Samuel said coolly. She has been for decades. You tried to steal pennies from a woman who owns the bank. I looked at my son, at the sheer terror in his eyes. You told me I was a burden, I said, each word precise and sharp. You were right. I was a burden on the small, cruel people you had become, and I have decided to relieve you of that burden. I turned to Samuel. The deal is off. We left them there, sitting in the ruins of their ambition. They didn't speak. They couldn't. The next morning I moved out. I didn't pack much. I just took my purse and the small framed photo of Henry I kept by my bed. Samuel's car was waiting. He took me to my new home, a beautiful, bright penthouse apartment with a view of the entire city. My safety deposit box was on the table, its contents now my reality, David called. Dozens of times. He was fired, of course. His company blamed him for losing the Apex deal. The emails began pleading, then desperate, then angry. How could you do this to me? To your own son? You've ruined my life. I finally answered on the fourth day. No, David, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You did that all by yourself. I simply handed you the shovel. I have not seen him or Chloe since. My grandson and granddaughter, however, I see every weekend. I hired a very good lawyer who helped me secure visitation rights. Their eyes are being opened to a different version of their grandmother. A version who was not a ghost in the back room, but a woman with a story. A woman who knows how to end one. They thought an old woman was easy to break. They forgot that the oldest trees have the deepest roots and the hardest wood. My name is Eleanor Rossi, and my story is far from over.